Good evening, everyone. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. There are agendas available in the file pockets near the entrance or on the City of Waterville's website. All items appearing on the consent agenda are voted on in one motion and vote. Generally, these items are routine in nature and do not require discussion. All items listed under unfinished business or new business are voted on separately. First, councilors will be given an opportunity for questions or comments. Once all councilors have had an opportunity to speak, citizens will be given an opportunity for comments or questions. Citizens must use the podium and identify themselves. Each citizen will be allowed one opportunity to speak and will be limited to 3 minutes. Finally, the councilors will be given another opportunity to speak or comment. Citizens who would like to speak on a topic that does not appear on tonight's agenda will have an opportunity to do so at the beginning of the meeting. All right, I'm going to do this first. I have a proclamation to read tonight. Whereas martial arts provide a powerful foundation for emotional development and success skills that last a lifetime, and whereas the participation in martial arts builds strength, character, focus, flexibility, and coordination while enhancing performance in other sports, in the workplace, at home, and in school. And whereas martial arts enhances self, goal-setting abilities, anger management, and the skills of nonviolent conflict, resolution in people of all ages, helping them become more productive and healthy people. And whereas the 41st Battle of Maine Martial Arts Championships will take place on March 25th and will benefit the Maine Children's Cancer Program. Now, therefore, I, Jay Coelho, as Mayor of Waterville, on behalf of the City Council and the residents of Waterville, do hereby proclaim March 25th as Martial Arts Day. Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Discussion item. Oh, actually, conflict of interest. Anyone? Oh, I thought Clyde was going to raise his hand. All right. Let's go. Discussion item, Waterville Regional Communications Center, PSAP.
Good evening. I provided you folks with a pretty comprehensive document laying out the history, but I just wanted to highlight some of the important facts and bring you up to speed on where we are right now. So for many years, Waterville PD was our own public safety answering point, which meant that 911 calls, if they originated in Waterville, came to our center, we answered them, and then we dispatched them directly. In 2003, legislation was passed that directed the Emergency Services Communications Bureau to reduce the number of PSAPs in the state of Maine from 48 to somewhere between 16 and 24. And that's where we stand right now. We're at 24 PSAPs in the state of Maine. And so in 2007, that affected our PSAP, and we lost our PSAP. So then, if you dialed 911 in Waterville, the call went to the Central Maine Regional Communications Center in Augusta as our designated PSAP. We then contracted shortly thereafter with Somerset at the end of 2007, and our 911 calls since the end of 2007 have been going to Somerset Communications. So the way that works is somebody dials 911 in Waterville, that call is directed to Somerset Communications. The call taker is going to take the call. They're going to obtain basic information, name, address, type of call, and then they're transferring that call to the Waterville Regional Communications Center, where our dispatcher is going to do the same thing. Name, address, type of call, and then they're going to dispatch it. Obviously, that does result in a little bit of delay getting help to somebody that needs it because they just had to go through giving the information twice. Sometimes that results in pretty frustrated callers. So that obviously, we didn't consider that a positive thing. There were some good things that happened in 2007 and 2008. We regionalized our communications center. So for 50 years, we had our relationship with Winslow and Oakland. We had been dispatching for those communities, working together with those communities. But in 2008, we picked up the communities of Albion, Belgrade, China, Clinton, Rome, and Sydney. And so we still dispatch for those entities to this day. Approximately 3 years ago, Somerset Communications didn't renew the contract for the city of Augusta and the town of Hollowell. So they were PSAPing for Augusta and Hollowell as well. That resulted in Augusta's calls going to Holton. So if you dial 911 in Augusta today, your call is going to be answered in Holton. CMRCC would have been their designated PSAP as well, but they didn't have the staffing to handle those calls. And currently, CMRCC is staffed with 17 full-timers, and they have an authorized, their table of organization authorizes 27. And their director is actually here tonight at this meeting. Now we find ourselves with 15 other Kennebec County towns in the same situation that Augusta and Hollowell were in 3 years ago. Somerset's unable to renew our contract, and we need PSAP services. The communities served by Augusta and Winthrop Dispatch, those are the other two dispatch centers in our county, they have options in place. The Winthrop customers are going to Androscoggin County, and Augusta and Hollowell are being answered by Holton. So it's us and our 8 other customers which remain without PSAP services. And I think part of this is our call volume. So Waterville and our customer towns accounted for about 72% of the calls that Somerset County is dropping by not renewing the contracts. And Waterville was a third of those calls alone. So we need to find ourselves a PSAP, and in doing our due diligence and trying to do that, our dispatch supervisor, Sarah Batiste, contacted all 24 PSAPs in the state of Maine, and none of them were willing or able to take on Waterville PSAP services. Now, statutorily, CMRCC would be the assigned PSAP, but they just don't have the staffing or the ability to do that for us, and they are the only other PSAP. There's no other PSAP besides them in Kennebec County. So that does leave us with a viable option of becoming a PSAP again. It would reduce call transfers, it would lower response time, it would lower the chance of human error on transfers, and it would allow us to once again receive and immediately dispatch our own 911 calls. The interesting thing, one of the interesting things about our comm center is we're uniquely poised to do this because we're one of the few dispatch-only centers in the state that maintained our emergency medical dispatch and our emergency fire dispatch protocols. And those protocols are staples of PSAP services. So by solving the problem for Waterville and our residents, we do have the ability to help solve the problem for our regional customers, which are the 8 other communities that we dispatch for. That would require legislation. However, the Maine PUC has filed a bill to allow the Emergency Services Communication Bureau to stand up another PSAP in an emergent circumstance. That bill at this moment is in the revisor's office and hasn't come out yet, so there's no LD number. But when that comes out, I can certainly keep everybody here updated on that.
Bill? So obviously we're going into our budget season, or in the middle of it, I should say I am. And this potentially has a major price tag for us depending on what happens and what we're looking at. But what it comes down to is that Waterville, to serve our residents, we must have a PSAP in place. And so our recommendation is that if the council is okay with our process moving forward, we would like to take a look at what it would cost for us to serve Waterville residents as well as the other towns that we're contracting with currently that are also losing the PSAP services. We don't know what that cost is at this point. We've looked at preliminary information, but we don't want to spend a lot of time on expending a lot of energy without the council's support going forward, or at least support for us looking at the options beyond trying to gain service from another PSAP, which, as Interim Chief Bonney has said, we've done, and there are no takers out there at this point. So I think at this point we'll answer any questions that you may have and seek your advice on going forward with the process.
Do we have an estimate of what we think it might cost?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question, Mayor.
Do you have any rough estimate of what you think it might cost us?
Well, the good news is that the state provides the hardware and software, and they account for all the training. That will actually save us some money in the long run because our staff is already trained on EMD and EFD, emergency medical and emergency fire dispatch. We would have to probably add some staffing, so that would come at a cost. But what we would hope to do is work together with our partner communities to come up with a fair rate structure that would mitigate that for the city, so that we're not, PSAPing on the backs of the Waterville taxpayers, but we're doing a fair rate structure.
And if there is a hole, can we get the county to fill that hole?
We can ask.
I mean, it seems like a county issue.
Yeah, we can ask the county. We have had some discussions with the county. They do support us in this endeavor, but I'm not sure that there's a lot of money at the county level to do that. However, we've been pretty careful about asking those types of questions until we get guidance from this body.
Okay. That's a question I'd like answered when you come back.
Sure.
I mean, I always say, if it's going to make us money, we know that this isn't going to make us money. It's going to be a loser. But if we can increase the response times in our own community and make our citizens safer, so long as we can get some help with that, I think we're sort of that regional partner that is the service center that sort of shoulders that burden. But
Claude wants to.
Claude, go ahead.
Just very quickly, Acting Chief Bonney, what in light of the staffing shortages at the Kennebec PSAP Center and at the Somerset PSAP Center, what is the prognosis in terms of finding people to staff a PSAP center for Waterville?
Well, hopefully the prognosis is good. Our center will be fully staffed here in the next couple of weeks. We have our final candidate to fill our 9th position in the process right now, and he's almost done. So I believe that the prognosis is good as long as we can, keep it positive, provide a good schedule, and, good working conditions for our dispatchers.
Oh, you're muted, Claude.
You don't think that there's a statewide shortage of dispatchers like there is for paramedics, other emergency people, as well as police officers?
No, I absolutely do think there's a statewide shortage. We were just talking about that today. Today, if we wanted to stand up a PSAP, I think that we would be 3/4 staffed probably. And so I think that's pretty good. That's a lot better shape than a lot of the PSAPs are in right now. Some of them are down to 39%. So you're right, there absolutely is a problem, but I think that it is not an insurmountable problem.
Well, I happen to think that it's a state problem, and I hope that our legislators will pay attention and deal with this because emergency service is absolutely crucial.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask about what the conversations with other towns have been. I think I read in the notes that you've discussed it with them and they're interested. Is that
Sure.
right?
So again, we were pretty careful. We were trying to do our due diligence to make sure this wasn't our only option. So we just recently talked with the other communities before the article that I wrote for you folks went public. But all of our other communities were very positive about it. The dispatch supervisor called the fire communities, and I called the police chiefs. And everybody that I talked to was very positive and on board, offered to write letters of support, and I know that Sarah had the same experience.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone from the public? Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that the council knows that our goal here is to make sure that it doesn't cost Waterville residents. So if we, if we do have the ability to stand up a PSAP for us and to serve our other communities that are in need, it's so that to make sure that our taxpayers are only paying for their services, and it's not subsidizing the other communities. That's very important from my perspective, and I know it is for Interim Chief Bonney as well. So I want to make sure that that's clear, and that's why when he was talking about a rate structure would have to be developed that obviously is fair and equitable based on what other PSAPs are charging throughout the state, but covers the costs that we have if we don't have outside funding from, either the county or the state level. So I want to make sure that that's clear. But I'd like to hear if the council supports us moving forward with looking at this. I mean, I almost think that we have to. I don't think we have a lot of options when it comes to this. I'm just thankful we knew about this in the middle of January instead of May during the budget process, so.
Anyone else? All right. Moving on to city manager's report.
So you do have the written manager's report is in the council materials that are also available online. Just want to highlight a couple of things for the council and for the public. Number one, the consultant, Eaton Peabody Consulting Group, that the city council had hired for the city manager search, will be holding their public meeting for the public on March 16th at 6 o'clock here in the council chambers. Mr. Garish will be running that meeting, as we've talked about, moderating that meeting, if you will. Every resident of Waterville is welcome to attend and express their opinions as to the two questions that he wanted to ask, which is, what do you see are the big goals for the city of Waterville in the next 5 years, and what traits and characteristics do you want in your next city manager? So feel free to attend that March 16th, 6 o'clock here. A couple of other highlights in my report. So the council had approved using $100,000 in ARPA funds for emergency basic needs outside of the general assistance program. In the city manager's report, I've reported on the January and February expenditures for the ARPA funds. In January, 6 households consisting of a total of 12 people were provided assistance with that money, totaling $3,906. In February, 10 households and 17 people were provided assistance, and that amount was $5,314. And I should note that all of that assistance was for housing needs, to make sure that we kept people in their apartments or in their homes, and they weren't out on the streets and homeless. I think the last thing that I'll update you on, and certainly answer any questions if you have them, is that you do have the second quarter financial report attached to my report. The numbers look very good for the first 6 months. I do apologize for getting that out later than I would normally like it. We had some formatting issues that I had to try to correct, so that it was correct and readable. But we're over collected in the revenue side, and we're just about where we should be on the expenditure side for 6 months. So it's always good news when we can report that.
Thanks, Bill.
Great.
Any other questions for Bill? All right. Council committees. Good, Councilor Frankie.
All right. First of all, I'm going to report on the Historic Preservation Committee. We met last week and discussed the comments made by the CEO of Ware Butler at the last council meeting. The committee agreed to write a letter to the CEO expressing interest in preserving the church and the rectory. This is the substance of the letter. We haven't got a final draft for it yet, but the Waterville Historic Preservation Committee appreciates your willingness and receptiveness to consider future uses of the Sacred Heart Church and the rectory, as you stated at the February 21, 2023 meeting of City Council. Both of these buildings have substantial historic value. We would like to see these buildings repurposed in a manner that is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood, but retains their historic characteristics. We're concerned with the future of the Sacred Heart Church, as it is one of several Waterville landmarks that we are interested in preserving if at all possible. Our committee hopes that you will continue your dialogue with the city and that a path can be found that is mutually beneficial. So that's the Historic Preservation Committee. I also want to note that the Comprehensive Plan Committee is going to meet this Thursday at 5 o'clock. That'll be a Zoom meeting, but it is a public meeting. One of the main things we'll be discussing is the chapter on housing for the comprehensive plan. So I invite anyone who's interested in the future of housing here in Waterville to attend. If you want the Zoom link, you can contact Ann Beveridge, the city planner. Thank you.
Any other council committees? Public comments? Seeing none, I'm going to move to the consent agenda. Unless, was there anybody online, Patty?
No hands raised.
Okay. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Councilor Frankie, if you'd send the letter that the Historic Preservation Committee wants to send to the councilors.
Certainly, when we get our final draft, we'll circulate it to council. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Now I'm going to move on to the consent agenda.
All right, move to adopt.
Second.
What's that?
Yep.
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak is absent, Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Morris is absent, Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to old business. Ordinance 22, 2023.
Adopt a rental housing registration ordinance.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
Okay.
We didn't do that.
Can we put the item on the floor and we can do the title only?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Wrong order. Okay, so I would move to adopt the amended version of the ordinance.
Second.
So should we vote to, no, that's on the floor.
I've got a point of order.
Yes.
That's outlined. We've got the original ordinance on the floor until we
So you put it on the floor. We can't amend.
move to amend that. It's out of the order to simply put another ordinance in its place.
Right, so we need to make a motion to put the ordinance on the floor. So make a motion.
Oh, okay, sorry. I move to put the ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Move
Yep.
to adopt, yeah.
I'll second.
Okay. Now you can move to amend by substitution.
So moved.
Second.
So now the amended version is the version that's on the floor for discussion.
Okay.
I've got a point of order.
Yep.
The substitution is a complete rewrite of the original ordinance. Therefore, I believe that it constitutes a brand new ordinance that should be presented according to our procedures as a new ordinance. If Councilor Green wants to withdraw her earlier ordinance, that would be the correct way to proceed, rather than making a substitution ordinance.
Well,
Okay.
I was advised by the clerk that that was the proper way to go.
Patty?
We've done this in the past to amend by substitution. I would agree with Councilor Frankie that there's a lot of changes that have taken place in this ordinance, but it's allowable to amend by substitution. There's been a lot of work done on this ordinance over time, and there's been one reading of the original ordinance. So I guess that you can proceed either way.
Well, I just think it's, I disagree with the clerk. I think this is a serious misuse of our procedure. The two ordinances are not anywhere similar other than in the first line of the preamble. And the title that has the word rental registration in it. I think we're going down the wrong path on this.
Well, I disagree. I think the ordinance has many, many similarities with the first version. But I'm happy to, and I think we should discuss it. A lot of people came here and they want to discuss it, and I think we need to. So one way or another, I'd like to get the amended ordinance on the floor. If it means waiving cloture to adopt it, then we can do that too, if that's preferable in your in your mind.
You could, in fact, make a motion to bring up the original item. You could withdraw all your motions and we could start again. You could have the original ordinance on the floor. And you can postpone that indefinitely,
Which is what I said.
which would kill the first ordinance completely. Then you can make a motion to waive cloture to bring the item up as a new ordinance, so you're starting over with the first reading. If that is amenable to Councilor Frankie and others are amenable, we could certainly proceed in that direction.
Anyone else?
That seems like a more procedurally correct way to approach it.
Okay.
Oddly enough, Claude, we agree because I was talking to Gilly about it a little while ago, so makes sense.
All right,
So
so
do you-
I'll withdraw my motion. And make a new motion to table the original ordinance
Indefinitely.
indefinitely.
I'll second.
So shall we vote on that, Mayor?
Please.
Councilor Gilly,
Yes.
Councilor DeBrito,
Yes.
Councilor Klepak is absent, Councilor Green,
Yes.
Councilor Morris is absent, Councilor Frankie.
No,
I'm here,
Oh.
by the way. This is Councilor Klepak.
My apologies, sir, I didn't know you were on. We're voting
problem.
to postpone indefinitely the housing ordinance. I'm not sure if you heard that or not. Would you like to vote on that?
Yep.
That's a
Yep, I
yes?
heard it, and I have an affirmative vote.
Thank you. Councilor Green was a yes. Councilor Morris is absent. Councilor Frankie?
no,
Councilor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 1 opposed, so it's postponed indefinitely. Would you like to make a motion to waive cloture?
I would.
Second.
Patty, can I get a roll call?
Councilor Gilly?
Yes.
Councilor DeBrito?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
Yes.
Councilor Green?
Yes.
Councilor Morris is absent. Councilor Frankie?
no,
Councilor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 1 opposed. So now I can read, this will be to adopt a rental registration ordinance. And the item number will be 54, ordinance 54, 2023.
Any discussion?
So let's make a motion to put that on the
Let's
floor.
get it on the table.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Patty.
No, it's just on the floor now.
Yes. We got here. Now the discussion. Counselor Green.
I think it'd be beneficial for the public, so we can get that addressed. I don't know if. Counselor
I'd
Green.
actually like to first discuss what it is that we're discussing here. Okay? And I know that, I obviously, this is a very important issue to a lot of people in the room. And we just need to be clear about what this ordinance is and what it will accomplish. And there's been a lot of suggestion that, or focus on inspection around this ordinance. And maybe I'm wondering if I could ask Bill Post to just talk about the program that we have already underway, or I can do it either way. But I think it's important because before the last vote, between the last time we discussed this and now, we actually have an inspection program that is underway, which was not in place when we discussed this before. So anyway, I think we
Yeah.
need to get that, have all the facts on the table before we start discussing.
We can certainly talk to that point, Councilor Green. Code Director Dan Bradstreet's here. We also have Fire Chief Sean Essler and Deputy Fire Chief Jason Frost here as well. So I think I'll turn that over to Dan, and he can talk about the inspection program.
Can you hear me?
Flip it up.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, the big button that says on. So yeah, in February, we started a inspection program of multi-unit properties with the fire department, code enforcement, and the fire department at a rate of 3 per week. It's something the fire department has done in the past, but codes has not in the past had the resources to take part in that. So this adds a bit of an enforcement arm onto the inspections that the fire department was doing. They had to take a break for several years because of COVID. So essentially, it's just a restart of that program, modified to have code enforcement involved with it. It's been very successful so far. We've hit 12, I think, 12 or 13 properties just in the short time since we started. Had good feedback from people, good cooperation, and it's gone very well.
I think it's important to note as well that this new rental registration ordinance is a voluntary ordinance, voluntary registration, I should say. And the goal is to obtain contact information for the property owners and property managers and emergency contact folks so that the fire department, police department, code department can be more efficient with their inspections, first of all, so we know who to contact and who to get a hold of to schedule those inspections and create a good working relationship with those building owners. And then the other aspect of that is so that in emergency situations, whether it's a fire call, some other emergency in that building or that property, then the other departments have contact information to be able to quickly get a hold of the proper person that needs to be notified.
So this ordinance is a tool to add to the code department's ability to enforce the codes and conduct their inspection program, and also engage with property owners about any issues they might have and updates on safety issues. Dan actually had put together a list of ways that this would support landlords and tenants. And if I may read what he wrote. When we witness a health or safety violation during the regular course of the day and need to quickly notify an owner, this would be helpful. Scheduling, would help with scheduling inspections as a regular part of our inspection program. So right now, the code department mostly has addresses to use rather than phone numbers. This would give phone numbers, so it might take a few minutes instead of 3 months. Notifying owners of available or upcoming grant or funding opportunities to improve their properties. Notifying owners of upcoming code changes. The recent state gas detector requirement is a perfect example. And creating a routine communication between landlord and code enforcement that would help strengthen the relationship between the two parties. This should make it easier for landlords to contact codes with any questions they may have regarding potential renovations or improvements to their properties. And I would add, with more people creating housing in Waterville, which is what we want to make sure that that housing is being constructed according to code.
Councilor Frankie has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Claude.
Director Bradstreet, do you have a particular protocol for selecting buildings that you're going to inspect?
Currently, we have a list from the assessor's database, and the executive assistant for the fire department, I'm not sure how she gathers that list, but we break it down. I'm not sure how she segments in what order they go in, but what we try to do is weekly, we hit one property that is a 4-unit, 3 to 4 units, another that is 5 to 7, and another that is 8 units plus. That way we're not doing multiple large properties in 1 week. But as to how she comes across who, in what order those go in, I don't know.
So, in other words, your process for selecting buildings to inspect is arbitrary?
Well, the plan is to hit everyone in the assessor's database right now, everyone that we're aware of.
Anything else, Claude? No? Any other council?
I guess I just also want to say that that this ordinance, as most of you know, but just so it is clear, was the result of a meeting that Councilor DeBrito and I had with the city staff, Bill Post, Dan Bradstreet, and Jason Frost, the deputy fire department chief, and members, 3 representatives from the Central Maine Apartment Owners Association, Dan Bernier, Justin Giroux, and Steve Casey, I believe. Okay, so this was a conversation that we had about how we could get together on this issue and come up with a result that was amenable to both parties. The council wants to ensure that we have an efficient code department, and this ordinance will help if we can get property owners to register their buildings, get their phone numbers, and find out what we have in Waterville for housing. We came to an agreement that a voluntary registration would be amenable to the association, and I'm assuming that's still the case. Yes, vigorous nods. Okay, this would be a kind of a trial program. We would reassess at the end of October and see what the registration would be. But if we have 90% compliance based on the assessor's database, then we can proceed. I want to add that this is what Lewiston did as well. The first year of their program was voluntary, but it did not have the cooperation of their landlord association. And we have gotten to the point where we have an agreement here and an opportunity to work with them as allies, which I believe is in the ultimate best interest of everyone. Now, I know that there are questions and concerns, and so I do want to hear them, but I just needed to put that out on the table and say, this is an opportunity for us to come together and solve a problem as no other community has done in the state. and that I know of. And I really would urge people to look to the future and think about the problem that we have to solve and how we can solve it. And, put aside past assumptions and move forward in this cooperative manner. I really, truly think it could be, it's what we need to do. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Dan? Councilor Frankie?
Yes, Councilor Green, you've been chairman of the Housing Committee for quite some time now. Did you present this revised edition of the rental registration to the Housing Committee for their endorsement?
I feel like I'm on trial here. No, this did not go to the Housing Committee for approval in its current form. However, the Housing Committee is advisory to the council. And, yeah. And the end result is the same. We get property owners to register their buildings.
I just think that, between the first ordinance written and this one, there's a lot of compromise. I know that in 6 months, we'll be able to review and see what's working, perhaps see what's not working as well. Also, I know that, I've been, there's a lot of, renters out there that definitely want their voices heard. So I hope that there's some in the audience this evening so we can hear from them as well.
Dan?
Good evening. My name is Dan Burney. I represent the Central Maine Apartment Owners Association, and I'm a resident of Ward 1. I want to thank Councilor Green, Councilor DeBrito, Acting City Manager Post, and other city employees who worked on this ordinance. This is a compromise. And there are going to be apartment owners who are mad at the association and mad at me for this compromise, just like, and I'll deal with it, and that's what happens with compromises. This is a good compromise, a reasonable compromise. I mean, one of the things I would point out to you that I really like in this ordinance that was not in the prior ordinance is an annual report to the city council by the fire chief with data on housing. And I think that's a huge improvement in this ordinance. That's the piece I'm excited about because I deal with housing. I'm going to be in the Judiciary Committee at the legislature. I'm going to be before the Augusta City Council later this week, and there's far too much innuendo and not enough data. So every year going forward, the fire chief will be giving an annual report to the city council where you'll be discussing issues with Waterville's housing. That's huge. The other thing I would say, when we look at this ordinance in terms of wording changes, most of the changes were actually deleting wording. Most of the wording in this was actually in the prior draft. Section 7 for the annual report was new. We slightly reworked the definition of property manager, and we put a little more work on the fire chief, which he agreed to. So the fire chief had some projects dropped on him. But other than that, most of it was deleting the legally problematic sections. So this is actually the wording that was in the original ordinance, which Councilor Green and others put together for the most part. From there, one of the things, because there's also some talk about Lewiston, that this didn't work in Lewiston, it did work in Waterville. Lewiston Apartment Owners Association has 20 members. Waterville has 800 members. I often love to boast at the legislature and run it in front of the other cities that Waterville has the largest, most active apartment owners association in the state. We often will double the size of the Portland Association. They're kind of cheating because they have everything under Bath now as Portland, York, so they're kind of cheating. They're still smaller than us, but they're getting closer in size to us. And that speaks very well of of the Waterville landlord community, that year in and year out, we're larger than Bangor, we're way larger than Lewiston, we're usually significantly larger than Portland, that we have a very active apartment owners association. Traditionally, we've conducted our continuing education programmings on lead paint and all in the fire department. They lend us their room. This is a community where we can work together on these issues. And this is taking us down the road of working together on these issues. And we should be very proud that we're a community that can work together on these issues. One of the things here, I'm actually pretty confident we can ready with his portal. The association's prepared to educate and push. Get people to enroll the first year, but what's going to happen is some people will forget to enroll. The association can work with the fire chief to remind Green or the fire chief with those. I figured we'd get through tonight because those are things we can next time. But the point is, we have a very strong landlord community in this. Let's have them work together.
Anyone else?
All right, I just want to say one final thing. I think it's pretty clear that I'm opposed to this so-called ordinance. It has no mandates, no penalties. Inspections are on a status quo. I actually see how this fails to qualify as an ordinance since no one is ordered to do anything. Didn't go before the housing committee, so we don't know what they have to say about it. And it hasn't been considered by the newly formed tenants association either. I am simply not going to vote for something that's not an ordinance.
Can we get it before those two committees before the next vote?
Sure.
I mean,
Yep.
seems pertinent. And, oh, go ahead.
Issue. We're going to get more with honey than we are with vinegar. The homeowner associate or the eat any more on this issue, have some with respect to Flavia is a renter, counselor, not a position. Talking to, or you're not going to get any more.
Thank you. I am a renter.
I did say you were a renter. Not as a renter. We need other from the homeowner association. Let's have some other people from the association.
It's like going back and forth, but even Claude about it not and of the order, because in 6 months we're going to review either going like tweaking this up again, adding the fee to get to 90%. So, I mean,
He's going to get his association members to do it. Member of his group, you're going to have to get them to cooperate too. It's 90% of what's registered. Say to 10% of people that we're going to be tearing this thing back apart.
and that's where the city comes in to educate the public and educate the other 10%. There is education that needs to go around this as well for those tenants that can't afford to be part of those associations. So I think this is a step going forward so we can all like collaborate. Landlords. So I think this is a good compromise. Speaking as of a tenant point of view, I feel house.
Dan Anderson from Ward 5. Who's going to monitor and adjust this, make changes to it over the time?
People sitting up here.
So any major change will be brought before the council?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I would add that, you know, it makes a lot of sense in October, presuming you know, things have moved quickly in Waterville in the last few months. And so I think we should take advantage of, we definitely should hear from tenants when we review any changes to this recently, so.
And also, too, they've been part of the discussion through the housing committee. So this ordinance is like, it started off with everybody's input in it. Towards the end, yeah, it did get tweaked up a little bit, but we didn't tweak much. What we did is we actually came with a compromise to grab the two sides and bring them together. So, but this has everybody's input in it. It started off at the housing committee.
I'll say there's more there's more positive, constructive communication happening between the city, the landlords association, and tenants. So that is a good thing. It's all new, and we're not going. It's sort of like a pilot program, like what we did for parking at the library. We're gonna see if we can work this out, and we're building bridges for those harder discussions down the road. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Jamie Pelkey. I am from the Waterville Tenants Association. We did not get any invite at all to the new ordinance, and I don't understand why, because our input should be there too. Also, I just don't believe it's fair for tenants to suffer buildings being not the way they're supposed to be, not up to code, not safe at all. So that's all I think.
I'm hopeful that this, in the long run, will address some of those safety issues that you have. I mean, the registration itself
Go ahead.
is separate.
The registration is supporting the commitment of the city to make sure that we have safe rental conditions in the city. That's a non-negotiable. It's just supporting our efforts to do that.
And I hope that you get a chance to see this before the next vote. I mean, that's part of what we were just talking about. Both committees. No, you will absolutely get an opportunity to look at it before the next vote. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Jamie. Hey, my name is Zach Campbell. I'm currently a tenant in the Waterville area. I come here speaking on behalf of the Waterville Tenant Association. We are facing unprecedented problems in the Waterville community: skyrocketing homelessness rates, substance abuse, a stagnation in real wages while experiencing an unnatural rise in rent, all while being amidst a national pandemic. People are struggling more and more as they are squeezed further, with their money going shorter and shorter distances. Landlords are becoming better organized, expecting a guaranteed income on what is an investment with risk. The government has largely abandoned any resistance to landlords. Solutions like rent control, limiting the number of investment properties landlords may have, and building public housing that is capped as a percentage of income with the remainder subsidized, is not entertained, made to seem like a pipe dream. Meanwhile, we must pretend we need landlords who have historically taken public funds and profited them, while most importantly, still claiming rights to the property. That's not a long-term solution to this crisis. We need other options, like public housing options. And while many landlords like to act like it's such a burden to be a landlord, they rarely recognize just how infuriating it can be being a tenant. When I was renting at 111 College Ave, the landlord was renovating the upstairs unit. He never bothered to consult when he'd come over, as was his right. Within a month, he came over at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday and complained of a lease violation. I told him I'd handle it, it wouldn't happen again. Never heard from him again about the lease violation. 275 days later, on the last possible day, he gave me a 45-day notice to quit, presumably copied and pasted from the CMAO Association website. And with 2 apartments on Zillow, I was at a loss as to what I or my animals are going to do with such short notice. To reclaim what little power I had, I ignored him entirely. On August 14th, the last day of the lease, he threatened to call the police if I didn't answer his call. I just answered, leaving, so defeated and humiliated that someone could treat a 27-year-old teacher so poorly. He was the one with the part-time coding job while I was working full-time. I was paying his mortgage. He was building equity off my back. Even now, at the age of 29, with no student debt, I am unable to get a pre-approved for a loan when the median house price in Maine is now over $100,000. Ultimately, this ordinance won't do anything to affect these problems. Whether you table it or push it through, all the aforementioned problems will still persist, will continue to sharpen as time goes on. We need tangible solutions. 65% of Waterville apartments being landlord-owned is a problem, especially when the state average is 21%. You would expect a little more in a college town, but 40+%? No, that's a result of landlord organization and the appropriate levers not standing up to them. As a final closure, in The Great Wealth of Nations, authored by Adam Smith, he wrote, "Landlord's right has its origin in robbery. The landlords, like all other men, love to reap where they never sowed and demand a rent for even the natural produce of the earth. Colby College has what's probably $1 billion of assets that they can't easily move. Take it from them and build housing that landlords can't profit off of. At least explore your options, because we're all going to get together in October of 2023 talking about how the homeless population is even bigger this year. And I have bad news about October 2024 unless we start acting soon to improve conditions for tenants." Thank you.
I'm Dan Anderson from Ward 5. One of the things I don't like about today's culture is how everybody considers big companies or landowners or everything rich and just out to take advantage of the poor and working class. I mean, for example, my retirement is based on large companies making money. And the investments in my retirement plan reap from that. So I have put a little bit of money away every week, and it grows for me. It's stuff that I don't have to do. It's money that I'll never have any other way. And I've been looking at retirement lately, and Social Security looks like it's going to meet our basic needs, but anything additional is going to come from what we saved. But as far as landlords go, you know, some people, you chose to be a teacher, but landlords, I mean, if a landlord's working part-time, they're buying a building and supplementing their income is a choice that they made to make a living. So to just say it's all greedy landlords I don't agree with that. And I'm looking through this, I mean, there's one thing here, this Maine State title requires that a plumber needs to do plumbing. So I can't change a leaky faucet in the apartment. I have to call a plumber to do that. I noticed some of the things that my building might not be, and I only have that one apartment that I rent to one person usually because it's so small. But a lot of this stuff isn't going to fit. And I have a neighbor in the same situation who has one apartment that's kind of small, and my son's looking for a place to live. And so I talked to him. I said, "You interested in opening up your apartment again?" And he said, "No, because I don't want to be a landlord." Because this is the kind of stuff that makes it difficult. Now, if you're owning a property and you know, making a living off of it, you need to keep it in good shape so you can rent it. I mean, that might not be so much an issue now because the market's so messed up, but it's not as simple as you know, I'm going to buy a building and get rich. If it was, we'd all have a building. And not only that, but any one of you who's renting more than likely has the opportunity to buy. It's about choices. It's about your choice. And your choice, oh yes. When I graduated high school, I lived in the projects on Chaplin Street. And I'm just saying it's not just, you know, it's where we are. It's in most cases, a lot of choices we make. So if we want to better ourselves, then there's ways to do it. And you know.
So,
Go ahead.
well, I just want to say that clearly there is a lot to discuss here about the housing situation that we're in from both sides. And I think that we should provide the opportunity for that conversation. But that is not what we're here for tonight. We're here to discuss this rental ordinance, this rental registration ordinance, which has become a lightning rod for the whole topic, clearly. But what this ordinance does is it asks rental property owners to register their buildings, and that will expedite the code department to follow up. That is what we're talking about with this ordinance. And let's have another opportunity to discuss these problems and come together in a way that, that's a little bit more curated, that's planned, that we have, opportunities to share these things, which are important. They need to be discussed and shared. So.
Thank you.
So, of course, we recognize that there's a difference between large landlords like Keystone and small landlords. We recognize that there's a difference between landlords like Keystone and small apartment owners who have single units. We would like to encourage that as much as possible. I didn't mean to come off as antagonistic to the small landlords. We're simply pleading for more options, not fewer, that's all.
Patty, can I get a roll call? Or is there anyone online?
Yes.
Caught it. I'm getting a vote. Yeah, but you gotta go up there.
Oh, Katie Spencer.
Okay.
I'm Bart Fermanek. I live off of Elm Street here in Waterville. Been a resident for many, many years in this city. A lot of things are going good, a lot of things are going whatever. But compromise. When people were talking compromise, I'm like, yes, let's go for it. Now, is it mandatory when a landlord signs up? Or is that just whatever? That's my question.
Right now, it's whatever until October.
Oh, okay. Would it be made mandatory?
It depends on if we
Okay,
get compliance.
and it's in the growing stages. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
It's still way in its infancy. It's a pilot program.
Thanks.
Katie, I'm gonna let you go in a second here. I'm sorry.
Sorry, guys.
No, you're good.
Scott Dart, Winslow. I'm a landlord. Just 2 points from sitting here tonight. 2 months ago, the big contention was inspections. The new one has no inspections in it. But lo and behold, when I sit down, the first thing I hear is the city has started an inspection program. So you're getting it without the ordinance. That's one. Two, compromise. We all like compromise. It's a good compromise. But compromise means you both share. And right now, the landlords are at, we have to show 90%. Tenants, not tenants, but if we don't get the 90%, so it's going to be back to the same thing.
No, we'll be back at the drawing board.
Back to the
We'll be
drawing
having that
board,
discussion.
and it's been mentioned for fines and fees. So you got the 10%, we got the 90%. If I was a renter, I'd take those odds.
All right. Go ahead, Katie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Katie Spencer-White. I am the president and CEO at Maine Homeless Shelter and Services in Waterville. Importantly, I come this evening as both an advocate for the hardest to house in Waterville. I think we have done more to prevent evictions and to rehouse folks than virtually any other organization in the city of Waterville. We also are landlords, so we have a unique perspective. We operate 11 units of housing, first permanent supportive housing for youth between the ages of 18 and 24. So I really do see things from both sides of the issue, and I'm in broad support of this compromise, in part because it is a real compromise. And I will be honest when I say when this ordinance was first pitched, I think I was approached as an advocate for the benefit of tenants. And one of the things that I was in opposition to originally is there's a lot of data that suggests when we put too many burdens onto landlords, we have a net loss in our deeply affordable housing stock. And that is something that we take very seriously as an organization that serves people experiencing homelessness. We have gone from 2019, when we were able to rehouse 30, 40 households in a month, to now being grateful if we can house 2 or 3. We know that our vacancy rate statewide is in the region of somewhere between 1 and not quite 3%, depending on your location. And that means rents are going up. And so anything that we do that will take housing stock out of the rental market is something that we're concerned about. So I was originally opposed to the ordinance as it was originally drafted, but I'm quite pleased with the ability of our landlord association to be open to compromise, and the way that good policy works in our country and in our state and in this great city is it's iterative. And this is a great step. I want to co-sign what my learned friend, Mr. Bernier, has said. Gathering data is going to be so important. We have very limited statewide data, but importantly, almost no local data that will help us make evidence-based decisions. So undertaking a pilot project that doesn't impose undue burdens on landlords, and those are burdens that we are willing to assume as landlords, but also begin the process of building relationship and that iterative process of building an effective policy that protects the interests of landlords, I think is in the city's interest.
Thank you.
Sorry, we have another person that wants to speak. One moment. Let's see. It's Diane Weinstein. I'm going to promote her.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. I'm in Ward 6. I'm a social worker. I don't have my doctorate like our current homeless shelter, Katie, and I am always thrilled with what Katie says in her research. But as someone who's worked with people who are homeless, who's worked with people who've been impoverished, my concern is that a voluntary registration program that does not include an inspection requirement for all rental properties continues to put the burden on tenants to report unsafe conditions. When living in at least this 10% number of units that we have already predicted are unlikely to not voluntarily register. My concern is that those landlords, property owners who do not register are probably those who have the most egregious violations. I'm thrilled that most of our property owners are good landlords, but my concern is about the health and safety for every day going forward where people live in unsafe conditions. And many of us have gone through those buildings in the past year. So if it's 10%, that means that there are hundreds of people that are living in units that are unlikely to live in buildings that will be registered or inspected. My other concern is that there is no formal procedure of buildings that will be inspected, a rotation. This again would take away the onus on tenants if they knew, if it was listed in advance, when buildings will be inspected, registered or inspected. That would mean that they would not be at risk if they reported a violation to fear reprisals. And again, we have areas. Is it going to be all South End? Is it going to be some from North End, West End, all ends of the city? I think that it is critical to have a formal, transparent rotation schedule. The other thing is we talk about the rental registration is voluntary, but then does that also mean that when the police chief, or rather the fire chief and code enforcement show up in their inspection program to any unit and someone says, I don't want, you can register my building, but I don't want my units, any unit inspected. I'm unclear what that means. So I think that these are discussions that should go back to the Housing Committee, who I think have put a lot of time and effort in discussions for this to come out even without their endorsement, and particularly now that we have a tenants association who I think should be strongly included. Nothing about us without us has been a advocacy statement for many, many years, and I think this is without tenants looking at this proposal. It may be a good proposal, but it must include their participation for us to have integrity as a community. Thank you.
Diane, the inspections are going to happen whether people register or not. That's separate from the registration. I mean, I think we've...
What procedure are you talking about, Jay? Mayor, what procedure? They're going to happen. Are there going to be, I heard 3 a week. Is that 12 a month? We have, how many units do we have? So what's the rotation process? Will people know? Are these, I think that's important information to know. You're voting on something that I think you haven't at least completed the protocol process.
But these are separate issues.
I don't think they are.
They are.
So we're inspecting, our plan is to inspect every rental property with 3 units or more over the next 3 years. That is the goal. Whether or not we will meet it within 3 years, we'll find out. But that is at a rate of 3 a week, every single one, whether they're registered or not. That is what's happening right now. And landlords are notified a month in advance, and they our notice to them is for them to notify their tenants as well. That's what's happening.
I'm appreciative of that.
Hi, Anna Holdener, Ward 7. I do not currently rent. I am a homeowner, but I am a former tenant. And I've actually talked with Rebecca about this ordinance quite a bit. And the truth is, this ordinance, as it says, it's titled, is about rental registration. So when you're looking at policy, you need to actually, policy gets broken down quite a bit, unfortunately. So being an advocate for tenants, I would say that this absolutely is a first step. I personally support this ordinance because it is about registration and registration only. It is about gathering information, and from that information, it enables the city to be able to do their job. And it also, when the city can do their job, then that takes a lot of the pressure off of the tenants. There really needs to be some ordinances about tenants' rights and protections, because there are landlords that will retaliate. And truthfully, there are landlords that have already started to retaliate when tenants speak up about things that are not safe in their property. This does not mean everyone. This does not mean that there are all landlords are bad. That is not what I'm saying at all. There are good landlords, there are bad landlords, just like there are good tenants and there are bad tenants. This particular ordinance, as it's stated, is very well written for registration, and that is what the purpose is. This is a first step. This has opened the door for a lot of folks to voice issues about and concerns about tenant rights, landlord rights, and I think that this is really just kind of getting the ball rolling. It is that first rubber band in the rubber band ball, if you will. And I really absolutely encourage the Housing Committee to involve the Waterville Tenant Association a lot more, as well as to hear from the tenants and to really kind of establish something to protect tenant rights.
Councilor Green?
I just have to jump in here and say that the Tenants Association came about largely because of the Housing Committee. It was a project that we had. So I think it's important to realize that they are connected.
Again, I'm still Dan Bernier from Ward 1. One of the things that we'll make is that currently, the code enforcement officer already has the authority to inspect and has been doing it for years. The fire chief has the authority to inspect. Waterville Housing inspects all Section 8 housing. In fact, if you're on BRAP, you get inspected by the state. Any housing voucher, you get inspected. So inspections happen. That's a question outside of this ordinance. And that was one of the earlier issues we raised. What will be very interesting under this ordinance is if you don't register, it would be the natural inclination of code enforcement and the fire chief to be a little more curious about your property and why you didn't register. In fact, I'm counting on it and getting us to that's 90%, that will be their natural inclination. And when I give my speech in September at our annual meeting, I'm going to be warning people that if you don't register, if I were the code enforcement officer, I would be more curious about your property. And so that speech will be given. We don't have the annual meeting until September, so you got to give me some time. But we're hearing a lot of good things, but I think this is a registration ordinance. It's going to provide emergency contact information and contact information to make their jobs easier and who to call. And I think we've made substantial improvements to this. And other issues are really outside that we're hearing are really outside the scope of what a registration ordinance is. I don't deny we have a problem with the shortage of housing. The last thing I'd point out is we have 800 members to our association because we are probably the market in the state which is most dominated by small landlords. We do not want to become the market that is dominated by large out-of-state corporations. I was on a call this morning with the Portland Association, and they were talking about a lot of the things you hear about in Portland were large out-of-state corporations not taking care of their buildings. That it stirred a lot of the regulation they've seen down there. Let's keep our market the market which is most dominated by small local landlords who live in the surrounding towns.
Go ahead.
I know that the Tenants Association, I know, someone spoke on behalf of not being included in this ordinance. I just want to know if there's any, aside from that, is there any concern with the ordinance as it is written that the Tenants Association wants to bring up before obviously we make a decision here? Please.
Hi everyone, my name's Ash Heber. I live in Ward 1. I've lived here for most of my life. I was happy to return after college and I'm willing to stay here for as long as possible. And I think one of my main concerns is that we have the introduction of this, which is awesome. We have that there's going to be a registration process. Now hopefully we reach that 90%. I'm really hoping. If we don't, we will come back to the drawing table and it will probably look a bit embarrassing, to be honest. But we'll move forward together. And I think the one part that has been left off here is what I've heard another tenant raise as a primary concern here. What happens when that communication is strengthened and there isn't that good rapport between tenant and landlord? So that tenant goes to the code enforcement and there is retaliation. Where is the protection for a renter? Because I'll tell you, we've had multiple people come to us already. We have not even really been up and running for all that long. And people are waiting for a platform to address their issues. So that's just a response and a concern that I have moving forward. We really need to be careful about this. If we set anything into practice, even for 6 months, we have a housing crisis. I won't word it in any other ways. I won't, I have my own thoughts about the matter. But I think we can move forward, and I hope we do. And I hope with that, we have the tenant protection in mind, because we need to keep people housed where they are. We do not need to traumatize people further. They're already feeling gridlocked here. So let's move forward together if we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Patty, can I get a roll call? Nope. What happened? Again?
Katie
Let her
has
back
her
on.
hand raised. I
Yep.
can promote her again.
Then take a vote.
Katie, did you want to speak again?
Yes, really, really quickly. I I want to co-sign what Ash just said and also what Mr. Bernier said. And one small concern that I have since this is now the first reading, that I hope the councils and the drafter of this particular ordinance will consider is in gathering information and encouraging the ease of sharing information between code enforcement and landlords. There's also a risk I think we need to define how that information, tenant information, will be shared. Importantly, one of the things that we see, not particularly in this state, but in other states, there are jurisdictions in which tenants who are justice involved or have chronic medical conditions, where there's frequent police or fire response to those homes, find themselves, police will actually notify the landlord so that the landlord can begin eviction proceedings. I think that's one small thing that I would just like to define as we move into a second reading, how tenant information will be shared, utilizing this sort of rapid response to be able to reach landlords quickly, that it won't be used improperly, that it will be used to ensure that inspections are able to take place, that we're looking at health and safety of the unit and not putting tenants at further risk of being improperly evicted from their homes.
Thank you, Katie. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Rick. I'm a resident of Waterville. I've been a landlord. I've been a tenant. I don't need no ordinance. I'll rip it to shreds in 5 minutes. There's a law, Title 14. Read it. Landlord, tenant. You want me to use that on you as a tenant? I'll use a tenant, I'll use it on me if you have. I know what it's all about. So what I'm thinking here, what you're doing is you're putting the horse before the cart. You have a law on the books down there at the legislature. Use it. We don't need another ordinance. We don't need a registration or anything. We need education of the law. You're gonna have a monster problem in this state, in this town by April. The money runs out on shelters. You're gonna have a massive amount of people out on the street. You gotta do something. I've been working with your manager here, and I'll continue. I'm not gonna elaborate on it. I'll show up at the building committee. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Patty, can I get a roll call? Yes, and then there's a second vote at the next meeting. But in between that time, we'll get the Tenants Association and the Housing Committee to look at it.
I just had a question, just clarifying something that Katie just said. This does not release no tenant information. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
And the data on housing, the housing data will be in aggregate form, so it won't have any names. It will just have numbers of units.
Patty, go ahead. No roll call yet.
Good evening. I can't hear, so can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So as a landlord of a Waterville, apartment owner, I was just wondering, where's the drop in communication between where you guys needed this registration? Because when there's a problem, I know that we might have had one domestic dispute at one of our apartments, and they managed to get a hold of us at 1 a.m. in record time. So I'm wondering where this registration, where there's a drop in communication, where you needed our information that you don't have already.
So, go ahead, Dan.
More and more properties are being bought by or transferred in ownership to LLCs, and it's very hard to find a responsible party to get a hold of. in a timely manner. Right now, we have the assessor's database, which includes mailing addresses, and that's just not a good means to get a hold of someone quickly. I don't know how they found your phone number when they needed to, but that's the situation that we deal with.
Thank you. That's good to hear, actually. Hey, but the other part of this is, so as a small apartment owner, bunch of us that are here as landowners, apartment owners, the other side of that is we have repurposed a lot of these buildings, and we are keeping them up for the people that generally like to rent. I'm not gonna. That's how, because they don't have the responsibilities that we do. We plow, we shovel, we take care of the faucets. We take. That's a whole different, So without us, there's a void that there will be a shortage. If they, I'm not sticking up for the large corporations or anything. This is for the small apartment owners, but we're all in one basket together. So I just wanted to, voice my side of that, and that's why I was asking about the registration thing.
Thank you.
Counselor Gilly.
I think that it's important to know that, the word compromise has been used quite a bit. And as a pilot program, I think that, in the future, with the Tenants Association, working with the Housing, Authority, everybody working together, when we bring this back and look back at what we've, accomplished in the information that we've obtained, we can make adjustments, good or bad. So I will be voting yes.
And I think for me, it gives a chance for education for both sides. And that's what, when I really thought about the tenant organization, it was based more on the education part. There's a lot of stuff that tenants don't know. They don't know that they have rights. So it's really educating tenants on those rights and stuff like that. So that's when I was really looking at a tenant agent, like association and stuff like that. I was looking more of that education part that we do lack. But right now I do see that this is really good to kind of get both sides to, let's have more dialogues like this. Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, that's a yes.
Counselor Klepak is absent. Counselor Green?
No, he's here.
Oh, is he here?
No, I'm here. I'm here. I was just trying to find the button.
Okay.
That is, first of all, I wanted to say that I simply echo the sentiments of my eloquent peers there, the other counselors, and I respect all of the opinions that have come to the podium. I haven't shared any of my thoughts, but I particularly want to reinforce the framework that Councilor Green put forward with all this. Keeping my thoughts strictly to the matter at hand, I am going to vote yes in support of the first vote on this ordinance. Thank you.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris is absent. Counselor Frank?
Nope.
Oh,
I'm here.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No, I again, sorry, double duty tonight, but supporting all the great kids at the high school and all the levels of the band concert tonight. But did happen to listen to all of the discussion and appreciated all of the open dialogue. And I am absolutely in favor of voting yes for this first vote.
Counselor Frankie?
No.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor and 1 opposed.
Mike, how was the concert?
It was rocking.
All right. All right. Moving on to new business, Resolution 50, 2023.
I will entertain a motion now to read by title only.
Read by title only.
Second.
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak? Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yeah.
Counselor Frankie?
I would like to point out that we did not pass the read by title only motion until just now, which means that technically the ordinance that we just read should have been read in its entirety. But I'm perfectly happy to vote yes to continue to read by title only.
Counsel McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Resolution 50, 2023, refer to the Planning Board zoning amendment, solar farms and commercial C-zone.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? This is behind. Is this one behind your building? Is this one behind your building? It's a good spot for it.
Yeah, I think since you're here, maybe you could just describe what your project is.
So I'm Chris Gauntz with Central Maine Motors Auto Group and a resident of Ward 4. And we're seeking the ability to do a small solar project behind our body shop on the airport road, which abuts the methadone clinic in the airport. And the other parcel is behind our maintenance building, which is the old Standard Electric building, and abuts the self-storage operation. And so it's going to be behind buildings, very limited visibility, and it'll produce roughly about 85% of our power needs.
It's a good spot for it. Any other questions? Oh, Councilor Frankie.
I just want to applaud Central Maine Motors for moving ahead with solar power. Welcome to the club.
Here, 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 here.
Thank you.
Patty, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris? Is absent. Counselor
You're-
Frankie?
Well,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to Resolution 51, 2023.
move to adopt.
Refer to the Planning Board zoning amendment to CV Street.
Move to adopt.
Second.
We're gonna get this down. Bill?
Yes, so this amendment would, this resolution would refer to the planning board a request for a zoning amendment to allow an apartment at 2 CV Street. If you have additional questions, city planner Ann Beveridge is here.
Can you ask people to be quiet?
Yeah, I'm sorry, folks. I need you to keep it down. We can't hear them. Thank you. What was the question now? We lost.
I didn't hear it.
We didn't hear what you said.
Okay, I'll repeat that. So this resolution would refer to the planning board a request for a zoning amendment to allow an apartment at 2 CV Street, which currently is not allowed. City planner Ann Beveridge is here if you have questions about that.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Frankie?
We chatted a little bit about this the other day, Director Beveridge. Is there any thought to changing this area to the new CC1 zone?
That's certainly something that should be discussed at the planning board meeting. I can't imagine that the planning board wouldn't be receptive to that idea. Are you Mr. Thompson? Mr. Thompson is here. He's the one making the request. Maybe he could speak on his behalf first.
This is the building that had the vending company in
Yes,
it, right?
right.
Yeah. Not really. I mean, you have an apartment upstairs.
There's already existing apartment there. That's why it kind of took me off guard that it was a issue when I went forward with the second stage of putting one downstairs and finishing the outside so it doesn't look so rough. And that's basically all I want to do is just keep going with the project and just do a one-bedroom apartment downstairs, completely new, no. And Adam was just there the other day, and we went over everything. I know there's a lot of concerns, and of course now with everything tonight, I hit it at a good night. Get your head spinning whether I'm putting my money in the right place, but
you are.
I'm in it. Yeah, well, no offense, but just so you know, there's a lot of people told me I was foolish, so just so you know.
It's
But
okay.
anyways, I guess
They
I'm
tell me I'm
foolish.
foolish.
I'm there. I've dealt with this issue of, everyone's right in a certain aspect. Unfortunately, there's good people and there's rough people on both sides. My attitude's been, and it's cost me money, I won't rent something I wouldn't live in. That's pretty much how I look at it. So
It's a good way to look at it.
that's all I want to do is have a decent place, respectable, and it's be all new. The upstairs is all new in 17. And that's why I say I was kind of blindsided with this zoning thing because I wasn't made aware of it 6 years ago, or I would have been in front of you guys and took care of it then.
To be honest with you, I don't think you were supposed to have the apartment 6 years ago.
Huh?
I don't think the upstairs apartment was supposed to be there 6 years ago.
I'm being told that now, but
I know.
it's 6 years later.
It is what it is.
So,
See if we can rectify it. It's housing.
well, that's what I mean.
We need housing.
All I'm asking for is a little, just, calm. I don't want anyone doing anything that's crazy, but I don't see the whole area is apartments.
The CC1 zone makes sense for your area. Councilor Frankie.
Well, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, sir. I applaud your your desire to create more housing in town. That's absolutely wonderful. I was simply asking the planning director a rhetorical question about the idea of expanding the opportunities in that whole section of town in terms of the possibilities for people like you to do all kinds of different things. Thanks.
No. Like I say, any questions anyone's got, go ahead. I'll do my best.
So I have a question. Just I'm wondering if you have a preference for this zone to be a residential zone, like a commercial residential C, or the CC1, which allows both housing and commercial. Do you have any preference?
No, I have no preference.
Okay.
I mean, no.
I think.
No, I mean, and I have no preference what my neighbor does if they have a business there.
Right.
Like there's one right across the street. Great neighbors.
CC1 gives you a lot of flexibility.
Right.
It just doesn't allow you to have a marijuana shop.
Yeah.
But other than that, you can do housing or
Tried for that. I didn't have
commercial.
enough parking. They said so I couldn't get a tenant. That's why I'm going with the rental. I figured everyone else was getting a pod shop, but not me. So,
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
okay.
Patty, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Resolution 52, 2023.
Authorizing the city manager to submit application for the Northern Border Regional Commission Forest Economy Program Grant.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Bill, just a little,
Yeah, so this grant would provide funding for basically $1 million for the cost of utility infrastructure extensions to Trafton Road. The extensions would add utility infrastructure with a focus, but not limited to water, fiber, electricity, which would allow for further development on and to Trafton Road, which is also a likely location for significant commercial development in the near future. So I want to just add a plug in for the Central Maine Growth Council because they're the folks that really work hard on these grants for the city, not just putting the applications together, but attracting developers into the city that will need these grants to make their projects viable, but then also writing the grants on behalf of the city. So it's money well spent when we're spending taxpayers' money for these folks at the Central Maine Growth Council. With that, we do have Garvin Donegan here if he has anything to add or if you have any questions.
Counselor Frankie?
Just quickly, part of this project is going to be to run water and fiber up Trafton Road. Is that correct?
Yes, Councilor, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, Councilors, city staff, and members of the public. Yes, that is generally correct. This is for a competitive federal-state partnership, Northern Border Regional Commission. The ceiling funding cap is $1 million. We're going to look to put a pretty dynamic budget to include as much extension, probably predominantly focused on laying subsurface domestic infrastructure, predominantly water. What we have remaining based on linear footage will also probably include some fiber optics, telematics infrastructure, and or potentially some energy as well, some power.
Well, the reason that I ask is we recently approved a development on Webb Road that's going to rely on wells for water. Is there any possibility of coordinating with the water department to see if we can get get Webb Road served with water as well?
There certainly is, and this is probably a great opportunity to do so. However, the water as currently stubbed is going from east to west, from West River Road down Trafton Road in a similar east to west development pattern of the water versus up by the areas you cite, Councilor. And that would probably be it would be a little bit of a longer extension, but does make sense to coordinate the infrastructure upgrades there as well. And just please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I see everything here but septic. What's with this? You got everything here but the septic. Is that already in or?
Predominantly, most of Trafton Road is not currently served by public or domestic sewer. It is mostly septic in that area. That extension has some planning perspectives on it. It probably wouldn't be able to be covered by the ceiling amount of this funding opportunity. With that said, and maybe to the nature of both questions, this grant is going to be a two-step dance. One, a letter of intent. That's a little bit of a misnomer. It is a full sketch out of the project with a federal budget. And if deemed eligible, then we can put together the full applications to apply. So while we have the looming deadline of this letter of intent, we do have some good time to do some planning on associated infrastructure and even use this to kind of stimulate those conversations.
I figured ask the question because I know I'm going to get asked down the road, what, you did everything else, why didn't you do this?
Yeah, well, that's what we share, Councilor.
Any other questions? Patty, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to ordinance 53, 2023.
Amend Appendix A of the licensing and permits ordinance.
Patty, you want to give us,
Move to adopt.
Second.
want to give us some info on it?
Last fall, we added craft fairs and flea markets to the licensing and permits ordinance, but failed to add the license fee in Appendix A, so I'm correcting that error through this ordinance change.
Okay. Any other questions? Patty, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.